Okay, everybody, welcome. Happy New Year. Good to see you all. So we are obviously here for the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority meeting. Today is the 9th of January 2024. First of all, to me to say welcome and announce any apologies. I don't think we do have any apologies, so that's good. And then move on to item number 2, which is just simply an announcement from me to say Happy New Year, really. Welcome everybody. A big announcement. Worth just welcoming everybody back from their Christmas break. Look, it is an old cliche, isn't it? Obviously, but I do think that this is a new year and a big year for South Yorkshire. You know, we obviously have elections going on across the world. We will have a general election in this country, clearly, and that is going to bring with it significant change, but there is significant change here in South Yorkshire too. We are this year, I think, going to be able to take some big decisions about the future of our economy, bringing more investment into South Yorkshire. Some of that we'll be talking about today. Obviously, we are still working on plans to reopen our airport, to fix our public transport system, work on bringing our buses back, or taking the decision about bringing our buses back under public control, and a number of other things besides. And I'm looking forward to taking all of those decisions in partnership with you all across South Yorkshire. Today we are taking some big decisions about the future of the tram network, about strategic partnerships, about investment into our region, and they are all big steps forward for the whole of South Yorkshire. So, without further ado, item number 3 is any urgent items. I don't believe there are any urgent items for us to consider. Item number 4 is items to be considered in the absence of public or press. Luckily, we don't have any press with us today, so that's, oh, hang on. So that's absolutely fine. There are no restricted items on this agenda. We have restricted appendices to items 12, 13 and 15, but the substantive items remain open. Item number 5, declarations of interest by individual members in relation to any items of business on the agenda. I know we have the standing issues around declarations of interest, but are there any other declarations of interest from anybody that we've not declared? Nope. Brilliant. Me neither. Thank you. Item number 6, reports from and questions by members. None have been received in advance of the meeting. Item number 7 is receipts of petitions, and I don't believe we have received any petitions in advance of the meeting, which takes us on to agenda item number 8, which is public questions. And I'm pleased to say we do have a public question from an old friend. So can I please ask Jenny Carpenter, who is in attendance at the meeting, to present her question?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and Happy New Year to you all. Bus services in South Yorkshire continue to deteriorate. Reliability is appalling, and it is no joke waiting for buses that don't materialise on cold or wet winter days. As a member of Better Buses for South Yorkshire, I voice our concern at the delayed progress of the franchising process. Please will you disclose the timetable for the stages involved? Also, as transport was one of the main themes of the South Yorkshire Citizens' Assembly, please can you say when its findings will be published? Or do we have to wait till after the prospective Youth Assembly reports? That's my question. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jenny. It will come as no surprise to you. I know you've been at a number of my meetings on buses across South Yorkshire to hear me say that South Yorkshire's public transport system, the way that the system operates, is broken. The South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority, collectively, we work hard to step in and pay for the services that private sector bus companies don't want to run themselves. That includes clearly a number of evening, weekend services. Rural services are part of that as well, and we do our very best to keep fares discounted, fares low for people across South Yorkshire. Since the pandemic, commercial services in the region have been hit badly, and those private sector companies have been withdrawing even more services across the region. We've lost 40% of our bus services, bus mileage, across South Yorkshire over the last 10 years alone, and the cost to South Yorkshire of picking up the tab for those declining commercial networks has gone from £7 million in 2019 to £21 million this year, which is a fairly unsustainable rate of increasing. At the same time, the law limits our ability to drive changes. So we can't buy and run our own buses, nor can we force bus companies to run services that they don't want to run, as you know well, even when that isolates communities and keeps passengers stranded. So our work is to protect subsidised routes and fares where possible comes from money raised locally. So be that through council tax, the transport levy, and I'm really grateful to leaders around the table for having increased the transport levy more than in over a decade recently in response to the challenges that we face on our network. But over the last 18 months, the MCA board is committed to investing £16 million of reserves, because that money is still not enough. £16 million of reserves and locally generated money to keep the buses on the road, whilst still recognising that the councils have put in more than, like I say, in over a decade. I'm also conscious that clearly the government have not put the money into South Yorkshire's bus network that we would all like to see. So this MCA put in a bid for £434 million to this government through the Bus Service Improvement Plan Fund. We received zero. We asked for £37 million from the Levelling Up Fund in order to do what's called demand responsive transport, and again we received zero. So even with subsequent top-ups, we've still missed out on around £30 per head relative to Greater Manchester, the West Midlands or West Yorkshire, and I fundamentally reject, as I know do the leaders of the local authorities, that people in South Yorkshire are worth any less than communities elsewhere in this country, and I am hugely frustrated that we keep being pitted against one another for funding. So where we can, we're prioritising reform in South Yorkshire's bus network, so as well as investments in our attended bus services, that £21 million that I talked about, we are moving at pace to improve customer services on buses through our enhanced partnership and through improved real-time data on public transport in our region, intervening to cap fares. So we brought in the £2 fare cap sooner than the government funded us to do in the autumn of 2022, and we maintained a tram fare cap alongside the bus fare cap as well, which we didn't have to do and were not funded to do by the government. And we keep reviewing individual routes on a case-by-case basis to make service improvements where we can, because we are committed to fixing public transport in South Yorkshire, and it's a top priority for us as an MCA board. But there are no easy fixes. We need long-term solutions to how we govern our public transport system. South Yorkshire used to have a world-class public transport system when it was publicly controlled, and we need to get back to a system that delivers for the public first and foremost. So one of those decisions is the franchising of our bus network. So we are taking forward the bus franchising assessment process. That is a process governed by law. The 2017 Bus Services Act makes that very clear what we have to do in order to get there. That takes longer than I would like. I think anyone around this table would like to take that decision. It costs a huge amount of money to take that decision, which is a frustration to us all, because it's money that we then can't put into bus services. That's why I'm pleased personally that the Labour Party have said that if they get into government, they will give us the opportunity to franchise our buses without having to go through that process. But we are where we are. So we are taking that decision as quickly as we can. We want to be able to take that decision as quickly as we can, and we're moving faster than anyone else in the country to take that decision. It wouldn't be right for me to preempt how long each stage will take, given that we can't predict some of the challenges that may arise through both the audit, the public consultation process, and we have to enter into a conversation with government about some of the funding arrangements, etc. around it. So it wouldn't be right for me to predict that, but I can assure you, and I know everybody else around the table would give you the same assurance, that we are absolutely moving through that as swiftly as humanly possible, legally possible, in order to be able to do that. And finally, you ask about the Citizens' Assembly, which I'm really pleased that is now concluded. We ran that over the last few weeks and months, and it concluded in December 2023. We're awaiting the final report from that Citizens' Assembly, and we hope to be able to publish it in the next few weeks at the outside, next couple of months. So we won't wait for the findings of the prospective Youth Assembly before publishing that Citizens' Assembly report. Having been in those meetings, I think it was a hugely positive and energising process, and I think that those recommendations, I'm sure, will get widespread support. So thank you very much for your question, Jenny, and good to see you. Okay, on to agenda item number 9, if I could please, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of November 2023. Are members content that the minutes are an accurate record of the meeting? Any objections or changes that anybody would like to see? Any matters of record? No? Thank you, everybody. In which case we move on to item number 11, which is the Assurance Framework Review, and that will be presented by Gareth.
Thank you, Mayor. This paper is simply an update paper for the board to explain the process we'll go through with regards to updates in the assurance framework for the forthcoming financial year. The assurance framework is the means by which we assess and appraise schemes and ensure that we are using public funding in a manner consistent with good principles and sound stewardship of public resource. There's been a number of systemic changes to the way in which we appraise schemes over the last financial year that have had a material impact on the pace at which we can develop, deliver and implement activity across the region. There's work ongoing with officers from 4 local authorities and partner institutions to co-develop the changes that we're looking to bring forward. And we've committed to going out and seeing each individual team before we bring forward final proposals in March. So I'm happy to take any questions at that point, Matt.
Brilliant, thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Gareth about the assurance framework? I know our teams have been working closely with yours in order to get through that process. Anybody? No? You're all assured? Sorry. In which case, the MCA board members are invited to input any views or recommendations on improvements that can be made to the assurance process or current assurance framework. Move on. Great, thank you very much. In which case, on to item number 12, please, which is the Supertram business plan for 24-25. This is a paper seeking the MCA's endorsement of the Supertram business plan for 23-24. Clearly, that's been attached as Appendix A, and I will hand over now to Pat in order to take us through the paper. Thank you.
Thank you. The Supertram business plan for 2024-25 is here to help the MCA offer strategic oversight and control over the Supertram operations, which come into public control with effect from 22nd of March 2024. The Supertram business plan is appended in Appendix A to the papers, and we're seeking endorsement from the MCA board for the Supertram business plan, recognising that it also reflects in the 2024 transport levy budgets to support the tram operations. It should be noted that the Supertram organisation will be governed by the MCA under a civil new board structure, which is made up of members of both the MCA as well as the operating organisation. And this business plan is our opportunity to help support that organisation and exercise control over the operations from the date it comes into our public control. So I'm seeking the board's endorsement and happy to take any questions on the business plan. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Pat. Does anybody have any questions or comments in response to Pat's paper? Tom, and then Ros, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you, Pat. I'm very happy to endorse the business plan. I think, look, over 30 years ago, politicians took a very bold step to ensure that this region had a mass transit system, and in March we'll take another big step forward as the tram turns 13 on March 22nd. That will be a step forward in our collective efforts to improve public transport in and across South Yorkshire. And for many people in Sheffield and Rotherham, the tram exists as the key way in which they get to work, to school, to education, to complete caring responsibilities, to get to the football, to see friends and family. And by bringing the tram into public ownership, we'll now be in a position to be able to modernise the operation, to upgrade the existing network, and it puts us in a much better position to be able to look at expanding the network, because we know that growing the network will be one way in which we can help to ensure that the tram is returning money to the system. So really endorse the business plan.
Well, thank you, Tom. Majid.
Thank you, and I just wish to state that government have repeatedly indicated that they expect the tram renewal to form part of the transport future of South Yorkshire, and the Department for Transport expect the tram renewal to be funded through the monies they have already allocated to us to CRSTS 1 and 2. I hope the government will think again and provide additional direct funding for South Yorkshire tram renewal, as they have for the mass transit in West Yorkshire with the allocation of 2.5 billion in Network North. This funding for mass transit in West Yorkshire comes on the back of government's decision to allocate them over £77 million in bus service improvement plan funding for West Yorkshire, whereas in South Yorkshire we received only 6 million. For government to expect South Yorkshire to fund tram renewal from CRSTS 1 and 2, whilst other areas get specific mass transport monies, is simply not fair. I want to see fairness in funding allocations from this government and any future government. I would welcome the support of all South Yorkshire MPs in making the case for South Yorkshire, instead of talking down our friends and families in Barnsley, Rotherham and Sheffield. and attempting to pit community against community, instead of shining a light on this government's failure to level up the north. There was considerable misinformation shared by the MP for Don Valley in relation to CRSTS 2 following our last meeting. I would like to place on record and reiterate that none of this indicative 1.455 billion has been allocated at this stage. My priorities for CRSTS 2 in Doncaster are transport links to our reopened airport and a bus service that is fit for purpose. I am personally committed to working with the Mayor of South Yorkshire and the leaders of Barnsley, Rotherham and Sheffield to dramatically improve bus services for all our communities in Doncaster and across South Yorkshire, and to reopen our airport. My view on the trams are well known. However, I do accept they are beneficial for connected communities in Sheffield and Rotherham. So once again, I call on the government to provide the specific funding for South Yorkshire tram renewal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ros. Appreciate that. Steve, do you want to comment?
Just sorry, Ros. Following on from Rosa's point, obviously in Barnsley our residents see very little benefit from the tram, and it's bus services which are their priority to see improvement into the future. And obviously they'll be looking at us and saying, well, we're sorting out the issues around the tram, we need to sort out the issues around the buses, as we've heard already this afternoon. We've looked very closely at the tram because it does cost money and it does require investment. But in the end, what we also know, having been through the detail of this, it would cost the taxpayers more not to have the tram than to have the tram. So in those terms, it makes every sense that we keep the tram going and try and make it the best that it can be. Equally, not to have the tram will be a big blow to transportation systems, particularly in Sheffield, but also in Rotherham and anywhere in the future that might extend itself to. So we are supportive of the proposal, albeit with the caveat of we will want to see equal, if not more, investment into the bus network going forward to ensure that those areas that don't benefit from the tram can see good quality improvements in public transport as well that also meets their needs, because as I say, for us, while supporting the paper, it's the buses that's our priority.
And I think I probably speak for everyone and say the buses are absolutely fundamental, aren't they, and a priority for everybody as well. So I think we all agree that buses are top of the list really, and a real priority across the whole of South Yorkshire. We need to fix South Yorkshire's bus network. So in March, the tram network will return to public control for the first time in what is nearly 30 years. So I'm pleased that today sounds like agreeing to the business case, the business plan for the new company that will manage the tram on our behalf, including that investment, as Steve says, in restoring and renewing the tram's infrastructure. So that's things like power lines and tracks that are the bedrock of a safe and effective network, and that has to be priority number one when it comes to the tram. We've always owned the tram. I think it's worth making that clear, but for most of the last 30 years it has been managed and run by Stagecoach in the interest of Stagecoach. So bringing the tram back into public control is a down payment on our ambitions for a different type of transport network in South Yorkshire, one that is absolutely covering the whole of South Yorkshire but puts out the needs of our communities first. I think it is worth saying, look, it does come with risks, doesn't it? And we will need to manage it properly and invest in securing and growing the network, but it is absolutely the right thing to do, because if we want to build a bigger economy, a better economy across South Yorkshire, to make sure that people have the opportunity to move about our region quickly and cheaply, to take traffic off our roads, quite importantly, to improve the air quality, then we need an effective and an efficient mass transit network. I know that some people, and Ros hinted at this in her statement, I know some people have argued that we shouldn't invest in the tram, and I fundamentally disagree with that position. South Yorkshire is one of only 9 places in the whole of the country to have a tram network. My friend and colleague Tracy Brabin would kill for the tram network that we have here in South Yorkshire. She's been working tirelessly in order to try and get the investment into West Yorkshire that she needs to get the tram network that we already have. I know that the government themselves, people like Hugh Merriman, for instance, would agree that failing to invest in our tram network would be a huge act of self-harm, as Steve has already pointed out. And that's why they've been working with us to fund the renewal of the tram network with that initial investment. So having an efficient and a properly run mass transit network makes us all richer, in my view, and I know that comments have already pointed to that, whether you're in Arbourthorne or in Askin, because it means that more people can get to work more quickly and more cheaply and more easily. And that's why I'm simply not going to settle for managing the existing network. So working with the government, we're now developing a plan to try and extend that tram network so that we can take more traffic off the road and connect up places like Stocksbridge that desperately need more public transport investment. So today, I hope we're about to take a big step forward on our plans for a fully integrated transport network. And in the next few weeks, I hope we can say more on our other plans around things like the buses and clearly reopening our airport, which are fundamental to all of us. So thank you very much for your comments. Is there anything anybody else wants to say before we move on? No? Brilliant. Okay, thank you. In which case, the board then recommends, please, that we endorse the South Yorkshire Supertram business plan, which is attached as Appendix A. Note that the South Yorkshire Supertram business plan has informed the MCA's 24-25 budget allocation to subsidise the first year of SYFTL's operation, and 3 notes that the business plan will be reviewed annually by the board in line with the SYFTL board, I should say, in line with the MCA's budget planning cycle, and will be approved by the MCA board. Are we all agreed? Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, in which case I move on to item number 12, which is the Simca and South Yorkshire Pension Authority Memorandum of Understanding, which I believe is going to be introduced by Mayor Ross James.
Thank you, Chair. Access to finance is a particular challenge for the region and its businesses. This MOU is continuation of the MCA's work to build relationships with institutional investors that seeks to attract greater levels of investment by working more closely with these organisations. You will recall that we recently signed a similar MOU with Aviva Capital Partners. In February, SYPA announced a Place Impact Fund with an aim to invest up to 500 million of its assets into South Yorkshire. The Memorandum of Understanding formalises the way in which the MCA will collaborate with the SYPA on the way to invest this funding. It focuses on 3 particular areas of collaboration. 1, early stage finance for businesses. 2, housing investment, including for affordable housing. And 3, net zero investments. The MOU is non-exclusive and does not commit either party to financial obligations. Access to finance is an issue for South Yorkshire. Finance is a key ingredient to growth. Without it, we cannot realise the opportunities available to our region. This MOU builds on the MCA's work to deepen relationships with institutional investors to ensure that funding flows to South Yorkshire businesses. It sets out how the team will engage with South Yorkshire Pension Authority and what issues that engagement will focus on: early stage finance, housing delivery and net zero transition. It is a very positive news story, and we are one of the only regions in the country that is working with its pensions authority to increase the rate of local investment. I recommend that the board approves the MOU, noting that it is entered into on a voluntary and non-exclusionary basis and does not raise any financial expectations. I ask people to approve the recommendations.
Thank you, Ros. Does anybody have any comments or questions about the report? I think what I'd like to say, I committed when I was standing for election, what feels like about a decade ago, but it was only just under 2 years, that, to try and work with South Yorkshire Pensions Authority to bring more money into South Yorkshire, and I'm really pleased that we're now at a place relatively swiftly where we're able to sign up to this memorandum of understanding with SYPA. So I think it's a brilliant step forward. It's going to mean, I hope, more money, more investment, more growth in South Yorkshire, and that's absolutely the right thing to do in my view. So thank you for the paper and thank you for the work that's gone on behind it. I know that's been a load of work, and I think that puts us in a really good place. So thank you very much. Any other comments before we take the detail? Okay, so the recommendation is that the board note the progress made in our work to further attract investment into South Yorkshire and agree the proposal to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the South Yorkshire Pension Authority. I should note that's my pension as well, so I'm glad we're using that effectively. Or some of it at least. So we probably should actually. I probably do need to register an interest. Yeah.
And have dispensation because without it, we wouldn't require it. So.
Yeah. Sadly, it's a relatively small amount of money we're talking about here.
Mayor, I'd like to place on record that I do not thank Eric Pickles for meaning that I cannot declare an interest in this. I think pensions for councillors would be a very good thing.
Indeed, I agree with you.
There used to be until our friend Eric decided we weren't one.
I agree. Someone called him a clown at the time, didn't they, I think?
I remember him well.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. That therefore is agreed. Thank you. On to agenda item number 13, please, which is the Homes England Strategic Place Partnership. We are making Ros money today. Ros, could you please introduce this one as well? Thank you.
I think I always earn more than my money, and thank you for that, Chair. This report seeks a delegation from the MCA to enter into a strategic place partnership with Homes England, subject to a number of conditions. These are: the strategic place partnership must be non-exclusive and must not limit the MCA or its constituent authorities to have direct conversations with Homes England or with other housing bodies. It must not commit the MCA to any investments, and it must not diminish the decision-making powers of the MCA. A strategic partnership with Homes England offers an opportunity to influence their investment decisions earlier in the process than at present, and thereby potentially increasing the flow of housing and regeneration investments into the region. It is also an opportunity to harness the considerable expertise Homes England has to the region's advantage. This extends to planning, legal, accounting, analytical resource, to name but a few areas. Greater Manchester and West Yorkshire have pursued such partnerships with some success. The SPP would establish a joint board to facilitate information exchange, but it is clear that this board must not have any decision-making power. We know our region is in need of greater housing and regeneration investment. We need to deepen our partnerships with public and private sector bodies so that we can deepen their understanding of South Yorkshire in order to meet our ambition for greater investment. A strategic place partnership with Homes England is an opportunity to do just that. Through increasing their understanding of the region's assets and opportunities, and through using the in-house expertise to South Yorkshire's aims, we can help to develop our pipeline of investment projects. Any partnership must meet our requirements, however. This is why we have put in place clear conditions. First, that MCA decision-making power is not diminished. Second, it does not commit the MCA to any investment. And third, it does not limit the MCA or its authorities to have direct conversations with Homes England or with other housing regeneration bodies outside the terms of the partnership. Noting these points, I recommend that we agree in principle our willingness to enter into a strategic place partnership with Homes England, and that we delegate to officers finalising the detail of the MOU, so long as it meets the conditions we have set out, and therefore ask for your agreement.
Thank you. Any comments or questions about the plan? Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor Jones. Sheffield has a partnership with Homes England, and has been working with them for a number of years now, and we are able, through that partnership, to do a number of things we would not be able to do alone. Access to finance, work with housing associations and other registered providers, unlock sites that have been stuck, and we are very pleased with how this is progressing, and hope that there'll be further announcements in Sheffield through this partnership later this year. So based on the work that we have been progressing in Sheffield, I think scaling that up to a regional partnership would make a great deal of sense, and I fully endorse this. We have a housing crisis in this country. We're not building enough homes of all kinds, particularly not building enough affordable homes, and we should seize every possible opportunity to bring about making sure that we are building in this region.
Thank you. I think it's absolutely worth taking a moment just to actually reflect on the work that you've done already, and I know alongside Kate to work with Homes England and develop that partnership already, and it seems like it is a hugely beneficial thing for Sheffield, and we should try and replicate that across the whole of South Yorkshire. I think that's what this paper is about. The fundamental purpose of that is to attract more government investment, more private sector investment in South Yorkshire, build more homes and support the regeneration of our region. I think we all agree that that is absolutely fundamental to why we're here. So unless there's any other comments or questions on the paper, we therefore recommend that the board give in principle agreement to enter into a strategic place partnership with Homes England, and then delegate authority to the head of paid service, section 73, monitoring officer, in consultation with me, the mayor, and leaders, to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Homes England to establish a strategic place partnership. All agreed? Brilliant, thank you. Okay, in which case on to agenda item number 14, please, which is the budget and business plan development process, and that is from Gareth.
Thank you, Mayor. Each year the MCA is required to set a balanced revenue budget, and this report updates on progress towards that budget, focusing on local transport activity and in particular the need to agree a transport levy for the year. So the board will recall that last year there was agreement to increase the transport levy for the first time in over a decade, and that decision was taken against a series of really difficult decisions and budget pressures across local authorities. This report again proposes a 2% levy increase, which when set alongside locally generated money and contributions from government will allow for the biggest amount of resource that has been made available for bus services in over a decade. Ultimately, though, this level of investment isn't sustainable in the long term. So with inflationary pressures and with the withdrawal of government funding from 25-26 will lead to an unsustainable position unless we can generate further money or find a fundamental change to the way that we deliver bus services. So I thank colleagues across the region for their support in developing these proposals, and in particular issues in addressing population statistics that have led to levy distributions as identified in the report. The final budget proposals will be brought forward in March, but I can commend this position to the board now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any comments or questions that anyone would like to add? No? Look, I think it's worth reflecting on, for me personally as the mayor has a opportunity to raise a precept in South Yorkshire. That is essentially an amount of money that we ask households to pay in order to support the priorities of the mayor, in order to grow the economy, in order to make South Yorkshire a better place. It does not give the mayor the power to raise a precept to pay for transport, and I think that's important to point out. But with that caveat, I think it's also worth pointing out that we are not raising a precept for the mayor's office this year. People are going through a cost of living crisis, times are tough, and so we are not this year raising a mayoral precept. There may come a point in the future, working with government, where actually the opportunity to fund public transport through some of that may come. Right now that's not there. But I do think it's worth pointing out that we are not raising a mayoral precept for the next financial year. So the recommendations of the paper are that the board approve a 2% increase on the transport levy, approve the maintenance of local authority subscriptions at current levels, note the proposal to not set a mayoral precept for the coming year, and approve the acceptance of 7.8 million in BSIP and Phase 2 funding. BSIP plus Phase 2 funding. Is everybody agreed? Yes, perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, on to agenda item number 15, which is programme approvals, please. That is again from Gareth.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the usual programme approvals paper. It's seeking a number of changes to our investment into zero emission buses and further funding towards Market Gate Bridge. I can recommend those project changes to the board. Additional funding does not affect cost-benefit ratios, and projects still represent good value for money. I'm really pleased to recommend to the board the approval in principle of the Barnsley Bike Works Active Travel Scheme, just shy of £1 million, and again that is a really good project that we're happy to support. The report is also looking for approval to submit a funding bid into government for further zero emission bus schemes, and to distribute highways capital maintenance and traffic light obsolescence grant to the local authorities. So happy to take any questions at that point. Thank you.
Any comments or questions about any of that? No?
I sincerely hope that there are government ministers looking at the Zebra 2 submission, and we very much need more zero emission buses in this region. It's a strong bid that's gone in, and hope that we will be in a position to accept funding in due course, because the region needs more cleaner buses, and we are doing everything we can to make that happen.
Yeah, I'll absolutely add my weight to that. I know that some of our local MPs, not least Paul Blomfield, Alex Stafford, were making this very point in a recent Westminster Hall debate, and welcome that support for South Yorkshire's bid for further Zebra funding. I think that would be very much very much welcome. As ever, there are some important approvals that are going through at this point, and we sort of read them out in the list, and people don't always, I think, appreciate just the amount of work that's gone into getting those to the place that they are, but also the difference they're going to make to people's lives right across South Yorkshire. Not least things like, for instance, the Marketgate Bridge in Barnsley, which is a brilliant project and absolutely deserves support. So really pleased to be able to do some of that. So if nobody else has got any other questions or comments, I will now go through my list, which is to recommend that the board please approve a Simca-led project change request for zero emission buses and commitment of a further £0.28 million to be funded from the CRSTS Zebra allocation as detailed in 1.3. Number 2, approve a Barnsley Metropolitan Borough Council led project change request for Marketgate Bridge and commitment of a further £1 million to be funded from Recycled Local Growth Fund as detailed in 1.4. Note the update on the Zebra 2 submission to DFT and request approvals to accept any resulting grant. Number 4, note the update on project 00214 detailed in Appendix B and request acceptance of grant award. Accept £3.99 million of additional highways capital maintenance funding from DFT and onward award. Number 6, accept £0.33 million of traffic signal obsolescence grant funding from DFT and onward award. Number 7, progress Bike Works Active Travel Hub from outline business case to full business case and in principle approval to award £0.95 million to Barnsley Metropolitan Borough Council subject to the conditions set out in the assurance summary. And number 8, delegate authority to the head of paid service in consultation with Section 73 and monitoring officer to enter into legal agreements for the schemes above. Is everybody agreed? That's good. That would have been awkward. Thank you, everybody. Okay, on to item number 16, which is the delegated authority report, which in Marty's absence will be handled by Gareth.
Yeah, thank you. Board will be familiar that at each pod we bring a list of decisions that have been taken under delegation by officers. Those decisions were appended to the document in the pack, and they include scheme development funding release for our schemes in Barnsley, Doncaster, Rotherham and Sheffield, investment into bus shelters, and the progression of UK Shared Prosperity Fund schemes. So happy to take any questions on those.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from anybody? No? It's all pretty standard stuff. Everybody okay? Okay, all right. In which case that is the last item on the agenda, and therefore the close of business. Thank you everybody again, as ever, for being here. I think that's again another huge step forward. The 3 big things that we've done today. I really appreciate everybody's support and getting there and all the work that's gone in. Thank you very much, and that's the close of the meeting. Thank you.